Super. Yeah, so then I think let's get started. So yeah, welcome, Brent. So I'll just do a very short introduction because we've got quite a lot to get through.
Yes.
So just so everyone, today's speaker is Brent Spilkin, but mostly known as Spilly with 3 L's. And there's an interesting backstory to that he'll talk you through. And Spilly is a business coach that works with various local creatives. So a lot of your favorite local creatives, I'm sure he's coached before. So he's got a lot of insight into the industry context and also sort of has seen the industry develop throughout the year and can therefore sort of offer you some very valuable advice in terms of going forward. And the talk has been almost everything you've been taught is wrong. So there we go. That's quite an enticing title right there. So I'm sure everyone's quite curious. So Spilly, I'll hand over to you. I think you've got quite a few slides to get through. I also need to mention though, those of you that weren't there when we discussed it a few minutes ago, the honors students, the VC honors students help to create visuals for his slides. So you're also in for a bit of a treat in that sense. So every slide looks completely different. So just a heads up with that. And then I think let's delve into it. There will be I think about an hour and a half more or less to talk through all of the points.
I think a couple of just sort of housekeeping rules is that if you guys want to, firstly, mute yourselves now, but if you want to ask questions through the presentation, please just unmute and ask. You don't have to wait till the end necessarily. I'm not going to be reading the comments while I'm presenting. So if there are any at the end, we can always come back to it.
Great.
And I think that depends on how the questions go. Probably I've got 45 slides, so probably about an hour and a bit. And then we've got, I think, 2 hours set here, so we can have a bit of a Q&A, and I'm happy to, always engage because there's lots of good questions. So,
that's
if you want
fantastic.
if you want to write down your questions, and then at the end, feel free to ask.
We'll run through them. That sounds good. Yeah, so all of you can, someone's asking, should we use the Q&A? So you can pop your questions into the chat, but you can also add it at the end. It's always nice actually when you ask your question in person. So I think that's also a good thing. And then just a quick request before we get started, just put your cameras on so that Spilly can see your faces, that he knows who he's talking to. Even if you're wearing your pajamas, we're sort of expecting that since the weather on the side is quite gloomy. So let's quickly see some of you just on the side panel. I'm not seeing a lot of cameras going on, but there we go. There's one. Okay. Let's hope they're all back there. Super. That looks much better. There we go. Fantastic. One just needs to catch a glimpse of the audience there, right? So
I know, just to know that I'm speaking to someone besides you.
Exactly. Super. Okay, fantastic. But then, over to you, Spilly. I think, let's, like you said, there's a lot to get through. So
let's go.
Let's go.
Good. Thanks, Micah. So welcome, everybody. I appreciate your time and everyone else's time. This is kind of a talk that I loosely put together last year and has adapted for this year. It's kind of sort of high level, quite inspirational, some practical pieces. It speaks to business, it speaks to life, it speaks to maybe the next steps in your lives. And obviously, I'm speaking to a bunch of people who are sitting within an education business. So I'm not knocking education here at all in terms of everything you've been taught is wrong. But I want to start with the story as to why I think sometimes we overestimate the value of education. And this is a true story. I once had an Australian client, her name was Prudence. She is a very smart lady, very intellectual, very academic. She was a CA, MBA, and a software engineer, highly intelligent, very, very sort of off the charts IQ. And she was looking for a business coach, and she was trying to interview me, like genuinely interview me as to why I should be her coach. And the one question she asked me was, well, Spilly, do you have an MBA? And I was like, no, I don't. She goes, well, what gives you the right or the sort of the position to teach me how to run my business? And I said to her, well, I can give you a real scenario. And it was a real scenario that was currently happening in my life at that time. And I said to her, Prudence, I want you just to tell me in which chapter of which module of your MBA they help you solve this particular problem. She went, okay, shoot. And I said to her, right, I have a client, a man, he's married with kids. He's got a business partner in his business that are equal shareholders, but he's sleeping with his secretary. And the secretary is now blackmailing him, and she doesn't work, and he's grossly overpaying her. And nobody knows about this, but the partner's now starting to ask questions around the salary. how do you handle the situation? And Prudence's eyes went like this, because you realize that there's this other layer, there's this fine sort of additional layer that sits above education when running a business or being an employee that you don't get besides spending time in the seat and understanding the value of the experience. And that's what I want to share with you today. It's about stuff that's not about stuff that you've learned, which absolutely has value and will serve you well going forward. It's about the other stuff that you've got to think about when you're thinking of a career or starting a business or just moving into life in general. So one thing I want to start with to say is that if you have an ability to speak, publicly speak, and I'm talking about whether you're standing on a stage at TED or you're doing a presentation or you're being interviewed, the ability to deliver your message succinctly will separate you from everybody else in the pack. So the one thing that I've learned over the years is if you go and watch all the TED Talks, and once I've explained this to you, you'll go watch a TED Talk and you'll see this to be true, is that every TED Talk has 4 proven steps. It's a methodology by which the TED speakers are actually trained on how to present their talk. And the 4 steps are very simple. Give your audience a reason to care, give them a reason to believe in you, tell them what they need to know, and tell them what they need to do. Now, this methodology was actually produced by a South African company called Missing Link. They do a lot of presentation training, and they've coached a lot of TED speakers, talkers. But the important thing here is that when you are delivering a message, what you want to do is get your audience to care in the reason you're speaking. So why is it important today for you to know more about starting a business, getting a career, thinking about savings, all things I'm going to talk about outside of your education? That's the care. Reason to believe, I'll unpack shortly. That's to believe in me. Why am I credible? Why should you believe what I have to say? I'm going to tell you a bunch of things you need to know and 1 or 2 things you need to do. So bear in mind, regardless of your skill, whether you're selling, whether you're being interviewed, the more effective speaker you are, the better the chances of you winning is. So this is part 2. This is, the credibility piece. So these are some of the numbers in my business, which I got out of in 2012. And these numbers were around in 2008. So at that point in time, so this is 13 years ago, my business was doing about 80 million rands in revenue a year. We used to sell about 2 million units a month. Of that, we used to do about 60,000 liters of packed juice per day, 35 metric tons of pickles sold every single day. My facility was 11,000 square meters. We had about 350 staff, a sales team of about 40 people. I had about 30 vehicles. We had 19 properties around the country procuring and processing fruit. I owned 2 German cars, a house in Parkhurst. And the 0 was the amount of fucks given when I lost it all, okay? Now, we can unpack the perfect storm and why I thought my business was bulletproof. But for 15 years, my business was indestructible and nothing could harm it. And in hindsight, I could have done a lot to possibly have explained it. But I'll explain to you now how this all happened. So after 17 years in my business, there was a perfect storm of multiple things that went wrong, and I just stopped giving a shit. And the reason I stopped giving a shit is my next slide, is that I wasn't getting my values ticked, right? So getting out of my business, I spent about 12 million rand, at the time it was about $1 million, buying myself out of my business. And today, 13 years later, I can talk about the fact that was the best $1 million I ever spent, because it brought me the freedom that I actually have today. I was trapped in that business. 15 of the 17 years, it was very financially viable to me, but I hated my life, especially the last couple of years. So that money brought me freedom, okay? It was the price of freedom. And freedom for me is the option of choice. And while I was in that business, I had no choice. I now have that option. And what happened is that as the business was unwinding, I ended up going on an annual snowboarding tour with all my buddies. And one of my friends sitting on one of the ski lifts said to me, after I told him that I'm about to lose a lot of money and I'm about to lose my life and my infrastructure, my network and everything that was important to me. And he said to me, his name was Craig, he went, "Spilly, don't worry about it. You've got an innate ability to always make money." And he was right. And after leaving that business, I managed to start something new, something that I really wanted to do and I was passionate about. And today I have probably one of the best jobs in the world because I love what I do. So the reason why I stopped giving a shit was because I wasn't getting satisfaction in terms of scratching my own personal value set. So over the last couple of years before I got out of that business, I just stopped caring. I spent a huge amount of time developing my Twitter profile. I posted a huge amount of tweets in the last 2 years of my business. And I just lost my drive. My motivation wasn't there. So understanding what drives you and what those underlying values are in your life are crucial at this point in your life when you start looking for a job or when you start looking to start a business. Because you may build a really meaningful business and may hate it because you don't actually scratch your value itch and you lose interest in what you're doing. So further on, I talk about passion. And I believe that you can follow your passion, but more importantly, I think you should follow your values, right? So my values are creativity, ego, mentorship, catalyzing other people's problem solving, and recognition. The recognition is a big one for me. I like to be patted on the back going, well done, Spelly, you're the smartest guy in the room, for argument's sake. And where that came from was the day I started my business in 1994. My father walked into my at that point it was a double garage, sort of an office, and he said to me, like, I hope you've got a head for business, son. And he gave me the thumbs up and he walked out. And I was driven for the first 15 years of my life in that business to prove my dad wrong, to prove to him that I actually had the drive and the ability to build a business bigger than his, which I did, because in 2000 I actually bought him out. But at some point during one of my very meaningful therapy sessions with my psychiatrist, she pointed out the fact that one of my big drivers was the recognition piece. And as soon as I realized my father was never going to give me the pat on the back, I lost the drive to push my business. And it wasn't about the money. And that's when I stopped caring. And to this day, my shrink calls it the big fuck you. The big fuck you is to prove to your mother, your father, your brother, your ex-boss, your partner, whoever it is, that I'm going to do it. It's a massively powerful driver, but it's quite negative at below the surface. So the one thing I want to talk about today is the myth of work-life balance. You hear about it a lot. The term work-life balance was developed somewhere in the 80s, and people think that they can build a life and a business and a career with balance. And you can, but you need to understand that balance is something that is literally a seesaw effect. Now, it's very difficult to find balance on a day-to-day basis, but you can find balance over your entire working career. So if you think of the seesaw effect, the seesaw is not your day, but it's the 40, 50 years that you're probably going to end up working in your lifetime. And what you need to realize is that if you push down on that seesaw now, i.e. work harder, work smarter, sacrifice today, your life will be a lot easier and a lot higher later on in your life. Versus if you play games now and you travel and you don't save any money and you do what you want to have fun for the first 20 years of your career, there's a good chance you're going to work for longer or work harder for a much longer period of time to make sure that you find that balance. So balance really is about a bit of sacrifice. Going back to my numbers, is that I had a paid-for house at the age of 22 in Parkhurst. I had the 2 German cars and a motorbike. My friends were studying. I was throwing excessive parties, living a rich life. But I had no balance. I was working my ass off, and I worked 6.5 days a week for probably the first 7-8 years of my working career. And if you want to be in that top 1%, you have to give up on this myth of the work-life balance. I think that focus early on in your life, on your career, will give you balance later in life. So the other thing which I find very interesting is that people who are successful take on more responsibility of the promise of an easier life later. They take on the pain now for the pleasure later. So today, many years later, at the age of 47, I have 1 property, 1 car in my family. I have cash in the bank that covers my daily living expenses. And even though I actually am poorer on paper than I was when I was 22, I'm richer now than I was because I have the freedom and ability to do what I want when I want. So there's a very simple equation to work this out. It's the A plus B equals X times T. So A is work and B is life. Life is travel, fun, parties, friends, relationships, hobbies, all the other things. But the reality is that X is your wealth. So the balance between how hard you work and how much time you spend on the other things that aren't work equals how wealthy you will be. And the T is by when. That's the time. So start with X. How much money do you want by when? Okay. And if you can work out what that looks like, you can work out how much time and effort you need to spend on the A, the work, or the B, the personal piece. The way you break that out is think of your life in 3 equal pieces. It's the Mercedes-Benz logo. So it's the circle with the pie chart. Now, those three pieces are very simple. A third of your life is your career or your business. A third of your life is your family and your friends. And a third of your life is your personal. It's your mental health, it's your hobbies, it's your physical health, it's your growth, it's your education, it's all the other things which are almost selfish potentially to yourself. Now, in a Mercedes-Benz sign, all three are equal. It's a perfect third, perfect third. But in your life, at different stages of your life, these three are never in balance. So if you want a larger business and want to make more money, you've got to sacrifice the other 2/3, and maybe not in the same order. When you get married and have kids, you need to give them more time. You're going to sacrifice personal or sacrifice business. So you've got to decide, what are you going to sacrifice in order to achieve bliss or happiness in the thirds that you want. Now, a perfect life talks to a third, third, third. But the reality is at different stages of your life, you may not have a career now, so you're spending way more time on studying, based on your commentary, a lot of studying, and maybe your friends, and maybe your family is less important because you maybe aren't married and don't have kids at this point in time. But that will adjust. But you've got to bear in mind is that, in my experience, the people that I know who have built meaningful businesses have a much bigger business piece of that pie, and they're sacrificing either personal health or they're sacrificing their relationships in their life. So if equity is wealth, then salary is comfort. And I said to you, you've got to work hard now to find balance later in life. But being rich and being wealthy, I don't believe are the same thing. So wealth is when you've determined your lifestyle, and that means, are you an economy class passenger in your life, or are you a first class passenger in your life, and which class do you want to be? So once you've determined your lifestyle and you've managed to gain some kind of assets in your life, the way you become wealthy is to have assets that provide return on a monthly basis more than your burn, which is your monthly cost. So I'm going to repeat that to you, right? Wealth is when you have assets that provide return, i.e. interest or rental of a property, that give you more money than how much you spend per month. So don't ask yourself, who am I comparing myself to when you want to be wealthy? Because there's always someone richer than you. When you pull up in your Porsche, someone's pulling up in a Ferrari, and there's always someone richer than you. So don't compare up, compare down. And it's not a comparison. It's what you want and the kind of lifestyle that you want. And bear in mind, someone's always living a better life on Instagram than you as well. But are you genuinely happier than them? So I know people that are very rich, people that earn R500,000 a month. A particular friend of mine is probably in that bracket, but he's divorced twice. He's got 2 different kids. He's got maintenance and bonds and private schooling and cars they can't afford, and second and third properties that put them under pressure, and parents and siblings that depend on them financially. They go overseas on holidays twice a year and basically live on the edge. And what was very clear through COVID is that they don't have 6 weeks financial runway in the bank. That means they don't have enough money to stop working for 6 weeks. So these people live a rich lifestyle, but they are not wealthy. They don't have financial freedom, okay? Especially in their heads. They worry about it all the time. The antithesis of this, or the opposite of this, is my mother, okay, who's about to turn 70 next year. She makes about 35 to 40,000 Rand a month off annuity. So that means interest, and she's got 2 small properties that she rents, and that gives her rental money. So she earns between 35 and 40,000 Rand a month for doing no work, but she only needs about 30,000 Rand a month to live. My mother is wealthy, okay? She doesn't have a lot of money in the bank, but she without having to work, can easily sustain her lifestyle. So she's not rich, but she's wealthy, right? She earns more than her burn on a month-to-month basis. So wealth is a passive income greater than your burn. Don't measure how much money you make, measure how much money you spend, okay? So the question is, how wealthy do you want to be? And if you want to be a 100 millionaire in the next 10 years, you've got to realize you're not going to do that as an employee, right? You're going to have to start a business. And also be realistic, is that I don't believe that anyone in this call is Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos. Like, if you think you are, you're probably mistaken, right? So make sure you start setting yourself some real financial goals that are achievable, and start spending some time on the saving piece. And I think this is sort of how you really should do that. So this is not my thinking. This is global stuff. You can get online and look for it. But there's something called the 4% rule, or the rule of 300. And what this is answers the question of how much money is enough. Now, everybody has a different enough money. But going back to wealthy, i.e. having enough money to come in to sustain your lifestyle at the standard that you want, this rule helps you solve that. And what this is very simple. Whatever your life expenses are on a month-to-month basis today, so let's say it costs you 50,000 Rand a month to live, then you're going to times that monthly cost by 300. So 50,000 Rand a month equals 15 million Rand. 100,000 Rand a month equals 30 million Rand. If you have a living expense of 50,000 Rand a month, and you can put 15 million Rand in the bank today, you can retire for as long as you need to for the rest of your life and die never touching your capital, being the 15 million Rand, which means that your kids will probably inherit something. Now, for a lot of you at this stage of your life, and I'm guessing most of you are fairly young, those numbers are incredibly big or scary, okay? And the scary thing for me is that at the age of 47, when you do this number, that number's still scary because my life is at this point more expensive than yours because I have kids and private schooling and other overheads. Now, you need to have 15 million Rands or 300 times your monthly expenses in stuff that generates income. So it's either money sitting in the bank that's generating interest or a property that's giving you rental. It can't include the house you live in because that isn't generating money, okay? Now, how do we get there? It's a very simple rule, is that if you're 20 today and you get your first job in January and you earn 10,000 or 20,000, whatever the money you may start earning, if you can save 50%, that's half, 50% of your salary after tax every single month, it will take you 17 years, 17, to get to your 300 number in the bank. This is an average, right? But what I'm telling you now is that if you start working at 10 grand a month in tomorrow, and hopefully that number keeps increasing, and your expenses in life will go up through periods of your life. So when you're 20 and you're living at home, very low expenses. When you're 40 and you've got kids in private school, very expensive. When you're 65 and retiring, less expensive. It considers that curve of costs. But if you start saving half the money you start making today, which means don't buy the sneakers, don't go crazy with the new cell phones, keep your costs down, put the money in the bank, in 17 years, you can retire. And you can retire comfortably, literally stop working and leave money to the next generation, okay, if you ever decide to have kids. So the thing which I want to say to you is this. This was me in 1994, okay? You can see that I had hair in ponytails. In 1994, this feels like yesterday to me, okay? And seriously, what the fuck happened to my hair, okay? It's like, it used to have hair, it's gone, right? So one of the things which is really interesting is that the human race has an incredibly poor perception of time. We think we have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time. I say to you, save for the next 17 years. That seems like a long time. You will blink and you will be sitting on a couch like me with no hair, okay? You will get old, you will lose your hair, your boobs will drop, okay? Start saving cash today. So don't buy the Nikes, don't buy the Vans, don't buy the Birkin bags, buy stocks, believe in compound interest. Start saving today. First myth I want to talk about in terms of business, and a lot of you guys might be leaving school thinking about starting something with your friend, a partner. And the belief is that 1 + 1 equals 2, or sometimes even more than 2, i.e. if I partner with someone, we can build a business faster or better or quicker. And the reality is that partners or partnerships is a sense of comfort. It's not actually always practical. In my coaching career, I spend more time speaking to partners about their partnership than the strategic conversations of actually growing their business. So at different stages of the business, the one partner may work harder than the other, or vice versa. And this often leads to things like resentments over extended periods of time. Partners may not be paid the same salary, and that causes problems. Where as an employee, you get paid for what you do, and you can separate ownership from employment, and you can get people to do the work. So I think that ownership is actually everything. And again, I told you, freedom is a perceived option of choice. So when you bring a partner into your life, you lose a bit of that freedom. There are pros and cons, but you do lose a little bit the option of making your own choices. And of course, giving away shares in the business at the beginning is very expensive versus paying someone as an employee to do the work. So don't always assume that starting a partnership in your business is the right thing to do. But however, sometimes, yes, on very rare occasions, partners are amazing and they can create exponential growth beyond what you can do on your own and add more value to a business. It also obviously allows you to go on holiday and know that there's someone else in the business that will take care and steer the ship for you. But if you're considering to take on partners, you must do it for the right reasons. And what's crucial here is that you partner with someone that has opposing and required skill sets to yours. So if you are a designer, don't partner with another designer, please. Partner with an accountant or a salesperson or someone who's got an MBA, okay? So work out why you want to partner with them. So are they going to help you grow the business? Are they going to help create succession planning in your business? Are they going to help build a valuable network, or do they have a valuable network? Are they at the same stage of life to you? I think that's important. Is, you know, if you have toddlers, do they have toddlers? Because if you've got toddlers and you need to be at home and they don't, they may resent you. So try and find people that are similar stages of life to you. And of course, I think what's also important here is that there are 3 different kinds of business owners, whether you're a freelancer or a larger business owner. And they categorize this as sort of the mountain climber, which is the entrepreneur who looks up at the mountain and goes, that's a big mountain, that's ambitious, I want that mountain. Climbs to the top of the mountain, it's a very difficult climb, gets to the top, looks at him and goes, oh, another mountain, I want that one too. Pure entrepreneur, bigger, more, you know, hunger for more growth. Then there are lots of lifestylers, people that just want to build a business which just gives them a bit of freedom and a bit of money. And then there are the artists or the craftsmen, people that don't really care about the business, but just want to produce the most beautiful thing in the world. Now, all 3 can build the same size business. So it's not about the entrepreneur will build a bigger business than the artist, but the artist needs to partner with the mountain climber. And the mountain climber probably needs the creative in his business or her business. So make sure that you're partnering with a different kind of business owner to the one that you are yourself. And remember, just the last thing in terms of partnerships is that when one day, hopefully you get married, or if you are married, you probably went through a phase where you met your spouse, you dated for a couple of years, maybe you got engaged, or maybe you lived together for a while, then got engaged. And then eventually, you know, you got married and climbed into bed together, right? Where it might be a couple of years for you to do that. But with business partners, what we tend to do is we go, oh, I like you. We had a good drink together a few weeks ago. Let's start a business. And you would never approach your spouse in that fashion ever. And yet people spend more time with their business partner than they do with their husband or wife, and don't actually date and slow down that dating process to find that they are the right partner. So date your partner before you get married to them. Stephen Wright is a famous comedian, and I'm showing my age potential, but you can go look. Once said that 50% of your friends are below average, which is true, right? And as you grow older, you're going to realize your place in the world. And again, you're probably not going to be Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos. So the sooner you realize that you have limitations in life, because we all do, but you can start defining your own success metrics to achieve them, the better, the happier you are in terms of designing your life to achieve what you want personally. It's a victory condition. So victory conditioning is talking about what does winning look like. So any game you play, you define what winning looks like and understand whether you are winning or not. So if you're playing soccer, we understand to win the game of soccer, you've got to end the game with 1 goal more than the opposition. At any point in time, you can look at the scoreboard and see whether you're winning or losing and change the way in which you're playing. But you need to understand, what does winning look like for you in your life? If you haven't ever seen this, and maybe you should be exposed to it, go look at the Simon Sinek video, Start With Why, for a business. But I also believe that it's a great video. It's a TED talk, but at the very center of that is a piece missing, which is, how does the business selfishly serve me? So what kind of business or what kind of career do I want that serves me, versus I'm just going to go build bigger and more and believe in the hustle that everyone talks about online. So the one thing that I would highly recommend, which is absolutely going to create value for you and success, is to build a strong network. Okay? At every single stage of your life, you should be building your own brand me. Whether you're an employee or a business owner, today, start building your brand. So personal branding is so important. And again, it speaks to the power of storytelling and public speaking. And part of that is content creation and building your own content. So if you are credible for what you do, i.e. you're good at what you do, and you have the skills to deliver it, and you've got a strong network, you're more likely to be successful in everything you're doing. Okay. So the important thing here is that you don't want to build the wrong brand or the wrong brand narrative around you. So be very cognizant of what you're putting out there on your social medias, in your friends, in your circles and your friendships, because the people that you decide to spend time with, we'll get to now, actually determine what kind of person you're going to be going forward. So as an employee, I think what's important here is you don't want to work hard for the company. Do it for yourself. Do it for your own credibility, and build a network of people that think you are remarkable, because that credibility, strong network and skills equals success, right? The trillion-dollar businesses and business owners have this amazing ability to tell stories to a credible network of people. The 1-9-90 rules, it was initially called the rule of the internet, which was very simple, was 1% create content, 9% disseminate content, and 90% consume the content. This is very same with the network that you're building in your life, is that you are the one, you are the individual. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach the 90, the masses, the primary audience, but you cannot reach the bulk of people. You have to use almost the influence in the middle, the middleman, which is the 9%, the 9%, the 9. So you need to figure out who are those 9 people, or the 9% that you can speak to, tell them what you're doing, how amazing you are, and let them share that narrative, that message to their network. So you need to be the 1%. You need to make sure that you're producing content that the 9% will share to the 90 all the time. I have a question for you all, and it's a more hypothetical question, right? So who loves Marmite? Because I don't. I hate Marmite, okay? Who loves Game of Thrones? Who loves CrossFit? Now, each of those 3 examples are what is called a mass niche. There are literally millions of people who love Marmite, and there are literally millions of people who hate Marmite. But the people that love Marmite. They will go to war over their bottle of Marmite, right? The same people who love Game of Thrones and the same people who talk about CrossFit all the time. Now, what is important here is that you're looking to position yourself in a mass niche. So whether you're starting to build your own brand or you're starting to start a business, what you want to be doing is figuring out who do you want to speak to. One of my pet projects that Michael sort of spoke to earlier, just in terms of keeping me busy, something I started pre-COVID, was called Business Bikes and Breakfast. It was a very simple community of business owners that own motorbikes that would like to do breakfasts and talk about business. So it's not, are you a biker or are you a business owner? Are you a business owner that owns a motorbike? A very, you would think, small niche, but there are literally thousands of people out there who own motorbikes and businesses. Now, it may not speak to a lot of people, but it speaks to those people in a way, the way Marmite speaks to others. They will spend more money because you're part of that very niche community, and that allows you to charge more and deliver more value to those people. So the double niche allows you to grow your volumes and your margin and not just be another Me Too business. The example that I used recently in another talk was, don't just be a lawyer and don't just be a divorce lawyer. Be the greatest divorce lawyer that specializes in gay divorce. And if you can do that, people will know you as the gay divorce lawyer, okay? And you will get all those clients, which is a mass niche, and you can charge those people specialty fees. I hinted to this earlier, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with, okay? So it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And think about who you spend time with. Are these people remarkable? When I talk about designing your life, think about who do you deliberately spend time with that are adding value to you, pushing you, teaching you more, making you better, opening up their network to you, and making you just a generally better person. I'm guessing most of you are still fairly young. You still have the chance to design your network. And it sounds maybe a little bit harsh, but design people you want to spend time with. And my mother always said this, you don't marry for money, but go where the money is. Okay? It's the same rule, is that you want to associate yourself with people that have cash if you want to be rich. You want to associate yourself with great tennis players if you want to be a great tennis player. Like, what is your objective? Hang around those people. If you haven't watched another TED talk by a guy called Dr. Nicholas Christakis, he talks about the hidden influence of social networks and how you become the average of people that you hang around with. And in his example, if you're hanging around with obese people, you are like 86% more likely to become obese yourself, because that becomes your norm. The same with the people that do CrossFit. If you hang out with a bunch of CrossFitters, you probably will become quite fit. So build a network, take your time and build the trust. pass it forward, pay it forward, right, in terms of adding value to your network, do the introductions, and bear in mind, people around you are not your opposition. They are actually your partners in life and in business. So South Africa and in most countries talks about the fact that we are a referral economy. Most businesses get work from other people passing the name around, not through social media, not through Google AdWords, and not through advertising, right? The personal network value is exponentially more valuable based on the amount of connections that you have. And again, there's something you need to grow and nurture. And the way you need to think about this is something called Metcalfes Law. And I'm going to read the law to you now because I always get it wrong here. It states that the effect of a telecommunications network is proportional to the square of number connected users to the system. Now, you may go, what on earth is Billy talking about? But the example is very simple. Is that, now I'm showing my age again, but when you had a fax machine, it was very cool. When you had a second fax machine, it was much better because the network could actually do something. You could send a fax to somebody else. And for every other fax that you added to the network, each fax could then communicate with every other fax on the network, exponentially increasing the value of that network. Cell phones is the same, okay? So the more people on the network, more people in your network, the more powerful that network becomes exponentially. And it's your job to find a network, nurture a network, build one, and grow it. And you've got to bear in mind here that your network is everyone that you know, okay? It's your client base, it's who you studied with, it's the people on this call. And you've got to bear in mind that today I'm your network, okay? And the longer you work and the harder you work and the more credibility you build in the network, again, the more successful you'll be one day, okay? So your credibility is your success currency. I'm hopping on here. Network without credibility is worthless. So it's your job to make sure that people remember the work that you did, but more importantly, the way in which you did the work, and make sure that you're always building that brand all the time. There's something called the paradox of perfection. People always talk about they're perfectionists and they hire perfectionists. And the reality is that perfectionists actually don't ever succeed because they tend to give up after failing once. And when interviewing people, I often ask, like, tell me about your weaknesses. And people proudly talk about, well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm going, yeah, you're right. That is a weakness. It's a real weakness. So much so that I wouldn't want to hire you because you're a perfectionist if you really believe that, because you're going to fail often. And if you don't get it perfect every time, like you don't have the grit to continue. So I believe that persistence is actually greater than perfection. And that graphic is actually lovely because it shows the fact that you failed and failed and failed and failed, but the last piece, you were persistent and you won. And it's better than trying to be perfect the one time. So, and that persistence is actually, we talk about grit and having grit in developing your business and your career. The next thing which I want to talk about is that not every one of you is going to be a business owner or is built to be a business owner. Some of you will be remarkable employees, and maybe you should realize that. And the way you can sort of think about that is, and maybe change your thinking, is that if you think of your skill set as a T, capital T, you've got a horizontal bar and a vertical bar. Now, great business owners have a very wide horizontal bar, which talks to all the skills that are required, hard and soft skills, to run a business. So it's HR and leadership and sales and ability to speak and creativity. Those are all things that sit in the top. Now, great business owners are not generally very deep in any one skill set, but they have they're sort of like a very wide, very shallow river. Lots and lots of skills, but not experts in any of them. Those tend to make really, really good business owners. Where guys that are very deep in one skill and don't have a lot of other skills and love going deep in that skill, you're a great employee. You'll make for a great employee because you love that one thing. We can use you and we can sell you for that skill, but you probably can't manage a business because you don't have the natural ability to develop the other skills. If you recognize the fact that you're a really great developer or a writer or creative, but you want to start owning a business, you need to recognize the fact that you've got to develop all the other soft and hard skills to become a successful entrepreneur. So think of it like a T. The next piece I think which is really important is that in life and definitely in business and in a career, you need to be very strategic and understanding what strategy actually means, because it is often the most overused and misunderstood word in the sort of entrepreneurial dictionary. What is important is that strategy is basically a plan. The word came out of the plan of action in war. you've got to bear in mind that there's no point in having a strategy if there is no competitor. There's no point having a plan if you're not competing against somebody. So in life, you're competing. In business, you're competing. In your job, you're competing. So you need a plan to beat the competitor. But what is important here is that no strategy survives impact with the enemy. So you have a plan. It's a departure point. We're going to start this journey, but realize that as you embark and you attack the enemy, your plan is going to change, and you just track the changes that are required. And the reason we have the two boxes in the background here and the Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson was that in the late 90s, there was a very big WBA heavyweight championship. It was entitled The Sound and the Fury, and it was Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson. And these two professional athletes prepared for months to battle each other in the ring. They physically pushed themselves, and they watched and learned everything about the opposition, watching every previous fight that the guys had ever fought. And they walked into that ring knowing exactly what they were going to do to win the match, until the third round, about 40 seconds left, where Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear off, leaving a massive piece of cartilage dangling. And you can go research it. It's an amazing thing. But at that point, both of their strategies fell out the window. So they knew what they were going to do until they actually got involved. So what's important here is that what is your victory condition in life? What are you trying to achieve? And strategically, what are the things you're going to do as a departure point to try and achieve those things? And bear in mind that most strategies are broken down to sort of 6 core stages. It's analyzing the current situation. It's setting those goals and objectives of things that you want to win, like the victory conditioning. Work out high level what strategies you're going to use, then which tactics you're going to actually deploy on those strategies, the actions, which are the granular things you're going to do on a daily, weekly basis, and then the control measurement to make sure that you are actually tracking the success or failure of your strategy. If you don't know much about strategy, go and learn. There are so many great places like Harvard Business Review. Go read up on Michael Porter and all of his frameworks. But a lot of these things will serve you well regardless of what your position in the world from a career perspective is. Strategists tend to get by ahead of the pack. I'll give you an example of a very simple strategy, which is if you want to start a small business and take it to market. It's called the 5 Ones. Very simply, it's this. You pick one kind of client, a business owner who owns a motorbike. That's one kind of client, right? That client needs to have one problem. So one client with one problem. Pick one solution that you can deliver in a unique way that solves that one client's problem. Pick one marketing channel to go and deliver your message. So marketing channel is not social media, it's LinkedIn, or it's public speaking, or it's PR, or it's outdoor media. Pick one marketing channel. Pick one conversion method. Conversion method is, how do we take someone who's shown interest in our marketing to buy from us? How do we get them from a person of interest to a person who's spending money with us? And then the 5th one is, do this for 1 year. One kind of client, one unique solution for that client, one marketing channel, one conversion method, do it for 1 year. And then don't get stuck. If it isn't working, adapt it, control and measure it, right? And that's a very simple example of a go-to-market strategy. Now, we talk about following your passion. And I have a problem with people say they want to follow their passion, especially creative people, because there is this tension between producing beautiful work or art and making money. And if you follow your passion, which is producing beautiful craft, and then you've got to put a client on the back of that, that becomes a bit of a challenge because the client doesn't like your look and feel. So rather, instead of following your passion, try and figure out something that you find fulfillment in doing. So make sure you're honoring your values, find something that you're good at and you like to do, but don't necessarily always follow your passion. Because what tends to happen, people follow their passion tend to become charities and not profitable work. They become artists and not profitable entities as such. So very difficult to follow your passion and make money. And sometimes it's better to go make a living and do your passion as a hobby or a passion project. I don't know who this is, the girl with no job. I love this graphic. Thank you very much, because it's obviously spot on with regards to the current COVID situation. So CQ is greater than RQ and EQ. So CQ is your change quotient. This is your ability to change, where RQ is your intelligent quotient, is how smart you are, and EQ is your emotional quotient. So in the past, a lot of people measured RQ and EQ. And it was people still employ on how smart you are or how intellectually or emotionally intelligent you are. But your ability to change and adapt to the environment around you is probably more important today than being incredibly smart or incredibly emotionally intelligent. And the fact is that I'm asking you to change who you are. In the same way a caterpillar becomes a butterfly or a tadpole becomes a frog, it's the same DNA, same animal, just better, just more advanced, changed. And when we talk about change, your ability to change generally sits within the three C's of change. You have a choice, the circumstance dictates it, or you're under crisis. Choice, circumstance, crisis, three C's. People often only change under crisis, or the circumstances around them change. The most powerful one is to do it out of choice. Change out of your own choice. And you can decide whether you want to be obvious and socially acceptable, the usual known story, and keep the status quo, or whether you want to be counterintuitive, socially frowned upon, you want to have unknown new stories and disruptive. But it's your ability to change will set you apart from the masses. One of the most important things you will ever need to do, whether you're getting a job or starting a business, is your ability to be interviewed or interview smartly. Most people in this room today, if they ever start a business, are probably going to start a business that's based on people. People are the production. People are the engine. If you cannot source, filter, bring in, and retain quality people, quality talent, you're going to fail as a business owner in the creative space. If you want to go work for the best businesses out there in the world, you need to make sure that you know how to be an expert interviewee or interviewer, depending which side of the table you're sitting on. And bear in mind here that interviews are a test. They give a result, and they separate the good from the bad and the best of the bad, the best of the best. And A team players hire A team players, while B team players hire C team players. When you're interviewed or interviewing, you're looking for skills, experience, talent, and culture, not just skills, okay, and not just experience. And in the past, people always looked for those things, and more so, people are looking for talent and culture and the fit. And also, they're talking about the things that are beyond your CV, okay? And people are less tolerant of holding on to staff as long as they used to in the past. If you got a chance, go look at the Netflix HR policy. It's online, a beautiful document. And the Netflix says that mediocrity receives a 3-month severance. You are fired. If you are mediocre, you have no place in this business. Which leads me to the next piece, that the CV is dead. Okay, long live the CV. If you are sending out your CV in a Word doc, you fail. I'll give you a couple of really good examples of the opposite of this. And what's important here is that when we think of CV, we think of recruiters, we think of using LinkedIn, we go to all those portals and look for work. But you can actually go out and sell yourself. And I'll give you just 2 or 3 very simple examples. There's a lady called Kirsty Sharman. She wanted to work for a business called Retroviral, who's owned by a guy called Mark Sharman. No relation, just the same surname. And what Kirsty wanted is she wanted to work at that business desperately. So she started an online campaign where it was the hashtag We Want Kirsty. She had T-shirts made. She put together a website called We Want Kirsty. And it was this whole thing, this whole pitch towards Mark, the owner of Retroviral, to get a job. And it got his attention and actually ended up getting her a job. So it wasn't here's my CV via email, please can I get an interview? It was like, I'm going to get your attention. I'm going to blow you away. The community is going to put pressure on you to hire me. You're going to hire me, and then I've still got to do the work, right? So that's part one. The next one was a great example where a guy called Matt Swart, or Matt Black, he bought prosthetic legs and arms, so real fake arms and legs, covered them in fake blood, put some cut jeans on them, put them in an ice box, filled them with ice, and shipped them to one of my clients with a note saying, I'd give an arm and a leg to work for you. Okay. He never got the job because he actually was the wrong person, but they gave him the interview and they weren't even looking to employ at that point. So again, be smart with the way you're trying to get a job. And the last example, which is very of interest and very much in your sphere potentially, is the recent ECD at FCB was a guy called Ahmed Tilley, who also started a business called Black River Football Club. And a guy called Ava Holter wanted to go work for FCB. And what Ava did was he started an Instagram page called Hey Ahmed, Look at Me. And he put out 13 posts specifically for Ahmed Tilley going, hey Ahmed, Nice to meet you. Part 1. Part 2, this is who I am. This is my skills. Part 3, I really want to work for you. Part 4, this is why I can help you. And he basically built a small story on Instagram, and then he tagged Ahmed Tilly in each of those posts. Obviously, Ahmed Tilly would go look at this, saw this amazing idea, interviewed him and gave him a job. Okay. Yes, he may have needed the Word document CV at some point as part of the actual interview process, but the reality was that he didn't have to wait for someone to get the potential boss's attention. He did it in a very smart way. So when I talk about your CV is not enough, your potential employer going forward is looking for more than a CV, all right? They're looking to see whether you've started a movement, whether you've made something of value in the public sphere. Have you built people who are ambassadors that will support you and give you great credit references and referrals, okay? Have you done something that has failed and shown that the fact that you're not afraid to fail? So, you know, out there, who are you? What are you good at? What are you bad at? What kind of things do you want to fix in the world? What communities have you built? What projects have you successfully completed? Even if it's for you or your friend or your auntie, okay? What impact have you had on the world so far? What do you stand for? Do you have Google reviews? Do you have LinkedIn testimonials, okay? Your CV is what people can find out about you online, outside of the work that you've done, outside of your portfolio, outside of your actual CV. So think about what skills you have and how you can use them daily to impress a potential interviewer and get on someone's radar. One of the big things that I've spent a lot of time in is the world of freelance, which has obviously exploded through the COVID period. And the story I always talk about is that in 1988, at the age of 64, my grandfather died while driving for his boss. He'd worked there for 34 years, the same company for 34 years. And if you ask anyone today, do you intend to work for someone for 34 years? They probably even wouldn't be working for themselves for 34 years in their own business. So the world has changed dramatically in terms of the way we think about wanting to work for 30 or 40 years for a company to get the gold watch and the golden handshake on retirement. It's far more agile, it's far more fluid. So the way of work has changed. We all know what the gig economy is, and the change of our mindset around I don't have a job and work for clients, and I work for clients now, and I'm not unemployed, I'm self-employed, right? But what is really important about being a great freelancer is that you may be a great designer or a copywriter or a web developer or videographer, whatever you guys are, but you probably don't know how to run a business that sells and delivers great design, great video, great copy. And that's what you need to figure out and develop, right? Is that you need to wrap your skill in all those other skills to be a great freelancer. So obviously where you work is no longer a concern. The way you engage with your potential clients is very different from having a CV. And freelancers, and I'll come to this shortly as well, can actually be a very viable way of making a very healthy living. And I know freelancers that make genuinely more money than some CEOs I do, because they're smart enough, they've networked enough, they know how to sell and price themselves and manage their clients effectively. So there's something called the Big Mac Global Index. You can go online and have a look what that is. I looked at it yesterday. It tells me that the Big Mac costs 31 Rand in South Africa and $5.67 in the United States. Now, if you take that 567 and times that by 15, you'll see how cheap it is in rands versus in dollars. Now, the reason why that's important is that do you want to be earning rands per hour or dollars per hour? Now, it talks about the price of Big Mac in every country that Big Mac are sold and equates it to the dollar price. Now, where people are paying the highest price for a McDonald's is also where they are paying the highest price for video, copy, design, and. So in the freelance world, you don't have to work in South Africa and earn South African rands. You can work in SA and earn money anywhere in the world. Now, when you're deciding where anywhere in the world is, in my mind, it's one of two questions. Do you want to ever live in that country? Or which country is paying the most per hour or the most rands per hour for the kind of skills you have? So when you think about freelancing, get paid in the best currencies in the world. And all of a sudden, you can sell yourself anywhere. When I say you can make a lot of money, I wrote a book a few years ago called What the Freelance. It was a mini MBA that Vega lectured. One of the things that blew me away was that freelancers make 3 times more money than the same skill as an employee. So if you're a designer and you're worth 20 grand as an employee, as a junior designer, within 2.8 years, you should be making 60,000 Rand a month for the equivalent job as an employee. So it might take you 2.8 years to get there. Understand, you don't start making 60 grand day one. But long term, you will make way more money if you're smart and you're a good freelancer than you will ever be as an employee. And then obviously, if you can build that freelance business up into be a larger business, potentially you can make a hell of a lot more money. So the same way that not everyone's built to be a business owner, not everyone is built to be a freelancer. And just remember the T-shaped entrepreneur, the same thing happens with freelancers. You need to wrap your skills in all the other skills to be a successful business owner, small or large. The thing that's working in the freelance favor of late is the fact that old companies used to employ 85% permanent staff. So think of advertising agencies. Most people, bums in seats. And we'd use freelancers for the balance, overflow work, particular projects, stuff we don't need people all the time for. Where now what's actually happening is that a lot of businesses are starting with a 15% core team, permanent team, project management, sales, account management, finance, maybe internal marketing, but all the creative skills, they're freelancing. So all of a sudden, not only is the freelance market exploding, but the way businesses are operating is changing. And that is also helping the freelance market develop a hell of a lot. Gary Vaynerchuk from Vayner Media, you can hate him or love to hate him. He said it's never been easier to start a business. It's never been easier to fail. And what he means by that is that, firstly, you're going to fail because it's now highly competitive globally, highly. Before you could start a business in town, you'd go up and down your little road, and you'd sell some stuff, and you'd build a small business and be sustainable. Now, everyone in the world is fighting for the same piece of work. So it's highly competitive. But it's never been easier because the applications, the tools, the access to people, the marketing channels, the systems, the payment gateways, the platforms, the ability to be paid in crypto, all that didn't exist 10 years ago. And now it does. So it's easy to start a business. When I started my business in 94, to have a software system that did invoicing was hellishly expensive. We used to write out our invoices. You can pick 20 online that are free or cheap today. Running a CRM system was hellishly expensive. Running an ERP system, hellishly expensive. Cheap to free online today for small business. So there's no excuse why you can't start a business today. And more importantly, in the space that you're in, is that when you started a business 20 years ago, to do any kind of advertising, you basically had print, TV, radio, outdoor. You had to go to an advertising agency and a media agency to do that. You can do that today on your own from your phone. There is no more excuse. So it's never been easier to start it, but it's highly competitive. I spoke earlier about this. I'm not going to hash this again, but bear in mind there are the three types of business owners. So there's the entrepreneur, the lifestyler, and the artist. And again, you need to decide what kind of business owner you actually are. And more importantly, what kind of business you want to join or start. So if you want to join a business, are you looking for someone that's aggressive in growing a business, or someone that's building a business for lifestyle because you want to be in that kind of environment? Or are you looking to join a business that's all about the craft? And when you are being interviewed, make sure that you're thinking about it from that perspective too, because you're also interviewing your potential boss. They're not only interviewing you, you want to also make sure that you land in a place that you want, and it's going to tick your values. When you're starting a business, one thing I always ask my clients is, are you starting a Chappy bubblegum business, or are you starting a Louis Vuitton business? Now, both businesses are actually really good businesses, but the Chappies is high volume, low margin. We've got to sell a couple of million Chappies every day at a cent a Chappy. Where the Louis Vuitton, we sell one bag a day and we pay for the rent every month. So you've got to decide what kind of business or what kind of freelancer or what kind of business you want to be joining. Because again, it depends on the way in which you think about your victory conditions for your own career. Now, the example that I always talk about is that I think of myself as being quite an expensive coach in the South African context. And I brag about this because I want people to know this, is that I can charge up to 7,500 Rand an hour for a session. Now, that sounds exorbitant to some people, exorbitant. But the top of the pyramid globally is a guy called Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins always brags about the fact that he only has 8 clients at a time, and they each pay him $1 million a year for no delivery, only access. So they can phone him whenever they want to ask questions. He doesn't actually do anything. There's no expectation for him to deliver any work for his $1 million a year, 8 clients. That's the top end, right? So that is the Louis Vuitton of the coaching business. I'm probably somewhere towards the bottom. I'm probably more of a Chappy's business in the bigger scheme of things. So you want to generally try and stay out the middle, because the middle is dangerous. In the same way I think about Pick n Pay, ShopRite, and Woolies. Woolies know exactly what they are. They know they're the top end. They know that they supply a particular market. ShopRite are in every single taxi rank, and they know exactly who they supply. Pick n Pay don't know what the hell they are. And if you look at those 3 businesses and you look at their share prices, it's indicative. Woolworths keeps growing, ShopRite keeps growing, Pick n Pay is going nowhere. So stay out the middle where possible. The one thing I think people don't talk about enough is the secret ratio of 3. It's not a big secret because I'm telling you now, right? But what happens within agencies or anyone selling time, sort of service-based businesses, so these are lawyers, accountants, advertising agencies, is they are buying people at a cost. So they're buying the designer at 20,000 Rand, and they're selling the designer at 3 times that cost, 60,000 Rand. So you work for 30, they're billing you for 60. Because they've got to firstly pay for you. They've got to pay for offices and software and hardware and coffees and Christmas parties and your leave and all the other things. And they still want to make a profit. Now, the reason why this is important to understand, especially if you're thinking about going freelance, is that you're not competing with other freelancers. You're competing with agencies that are selling people with your skill set at 3 times the price. This helps you set your pricing and your margins. So bear in mind, who are you competing with? You're not competing with freelancers, okay? And the other thing as well, which is also really important, is that when I hire a designer at 20,000 Rand for my agency, I'm paying them for 195 hours a month. That's an 8 to 5, 21 days a month, 195 hours a month. But they're not delivering 195 hours of billable hours because they're taking lunch, they're doing a lot of internal meetings, they're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, they're off, they're a bit slack, whatever that is. Agencies generally get 130 to 140 billable hours per month. But when you are a small business, you can generally do way more than 6 hours a day of billable work, which means that, number one, you can charge more because you're competing with the agency, and you can sell more hours a month. So therefore, you can make more money than being an employee. I'm testing this slide out. This is a new one for me, right? I love this for a reason. Kim Kardashian, who I hate, okay? I think she's incredibly smart for different reasons, but I hate her, once said, quote unquote, if money can solve the problem, it's not a problem, it's a choice. I repeat that. If money can solve the problem, it's not a problem, it's a choice. Because what she means is that there's always money available in the world. You can always raise money if you can solve a big problem. So the reason why I say to you this is that in life, we only have 2 constraints when starting a business. We have time constraint, real constraint, and money constraint. But the reality is that only time is scarce. Money is not scarce. Money is available. So if you approach your life and you approach your career with a sense of abundance versus scarcity, you find that unlocking money is quite easy to do. And there's a great book called The Wealthy Gardener, and he talks about the fact that some people decide that they want to build nets to catch butterflies, where he'd rather build a garden to attract even more butterflies. So it's the way you approach it. But the important thing for me is that when you're approaching whatever you're about to do in your life, the only real constraint you have is time. Money is never really the problem. You can always find money. The next thing I find is interesting is that I've got a friend in Cape Town here. His name is Richard. He's got a tattoo on his arm here that says FYP. FYP stands for fuck your pride. Okay? Fuck your pride. And what that means is that it's a reminder for him is that a lot of the things that we don't do in life is because we're too proud. We're too proud to ask for help. We're too proud to pay for help. We're too proud to find a mentor, to join a masterclass, to find a therapist, to say, help, I need some support, okay? We're also, and most importantly, too proud to go, hey, I need some work. Hey, I want a job. Hey, I need to charge you more, okay? So if your pride is one of the biggest things that limits your growth as an employee or an employer, and make sure that you're always questioning that when you're scared to do something, is it a pride problem? Don't be so proud that you cannot actually ask for help. You may or may not ever heard of something called an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is the 20 seconds by which, when I say to you, hey, what do? You can tell me what you do and give me a reason to spend money with you. It's very difficult. Now, if you said to me, Spilly, what do you do? And I said, I'm a business coach. You're going to go, what the hell is that? What do I do with that? I don't know how to spend money with you. The Gaddy pitch is a guy called Mr. Gaddy, and he's produced a very simple three-part framework for how to build your sales pitch. Now, your sales pitch is important whether you're starting a business or part of the interview process if you're trying to get a job. The 3 phases are as follows. You know how, when, ... What I do or what we do is ... In fact, ... You know how, when ... is the problem. So you know how, when you're trying to build a business and you don't know how to get clients, you're not sure how to employ staff, that's the problem. What I do is, which is the unique solution, is I help you by doing the following things for you. In fact, is the credibility and case study. In fact, I've done it for 150 businesses. I've been doing it for 10 years. I've done it for global brands. I've done it for small entrepreneurs, whatever the case study that's required to prove that whatever your client's problem is, what you do is a unique solution to that problem, and you are the right person to do that. You have the credibility or case study to prove that you should pick me. So as opposed to going, hey, what do you do? Now I'm a designer. I don't know what to do with you. If I go, hey, what do? You go, you know how when you're building a website and you're not sure how it should be laid out? What I do is I help you with your user experience and make sure your potential clients land on the right page and eventually spend money with you. In fact, I've done this for 10 other people. Oh, that's a problem I have. I will spend money with you, right? So figure out what your Gaddy pitch is. Leaving school, when people ask you what you do, don't tell them you're a designer. Like, tell them what problem you solve, how you solve it, and why you're the right person to solve it for them. One thing that I've become very, very apparent is this belief that they've got to be first to market. Whatever you're doing, I've got to be the first. I've got to be best. I've got to be there before anyone else. And there's a great study, and this is many years ago, by 2 researchers, Peter Golder and I can't remember the guy's name. Someone tell us. And they compared multiple companies of how successful the companies were, and they categorized them by pioneers and settlers. So the pioneers were the first movers. These were the initial companies to develop and sell a product, while the settlers were slow to launch. They kind of waited for the pioneers to blaze their trail, create a market before they entered it. And this belief of we've got to be pioneers is not always true in terms of success. So after analyzing hundreds of brands and across lots of different sort of product categories, they found a staggering difference in the failure rates between pioneers and settlers. The failure rate was 47% for pioneers with only 8% for settlers. So 47% of people who went, I'm going to be first, failed. Where people went, someone else done before and I can do the same thing, you only fell 8%. Pioneers were six times more likely to fail than settlers. And even when the pioneers survived and actually did okay, they only captured a smaller percentage of the market. I think it was like 10%, where the settlers captured 28%. Now, the reason why that's important and the reason I'm telling this is that sometimes it's okay to be a me too business. A me too business is, you're a design agency, yeah, me too. As opposed to, no, I'm this hybrid UI, UX, CX, blah, 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 and no one knows what the hell you are. Tell them what you are, be the same, but then just do it better, do it faster, do it cheaper, and just learn from other people's mistakes. So you don't have to always be the smartest, weirdest name firm in the business. Just make sure that you can do it better than the guys that did it before you. So this is second last slide. I'm going to use this as kind of a parting words. So when I grew up, I had a very different screen from these screens. I had this toy called an Etch-a-Sketch. Like you might think this is a cool retro toy, but this is what I grew up at the time, right? It was a mechanical drawing toy invented in the 50s by a Frenchman. It had 2 knobs which moved a stylus that moved aluminium powder on the back of the screen, leaving a solid line, and you could just draw pictures on it. And as a kid, this thing was magic. Okay, I only needed to pick it up, flip the toy around, shake it around, redistributed the powder over the screen, and I could then start again. And I think that the COVID-19 last year and a half has presented a new opportunity to envision our own lives upside down, the powder redistributed, and we can start over and draw again outside the lines. So you will never regret trying something new. You will never regret not trying anything at all. COVID has opened up a whack of new opportunities for a better life for all of us, right? And I think that some of you might be going through some kind of a rebirth or rejuvenation, a reincarnation, a reinvention. Okay, I think it's important that you try and embrace the change and basically pick up your etch-a-sketch and shake it and start again if need be. And my last slide is very simple, is that one of the greatest contributors to success in your business is your attitude towards everything and everyone else and the ability to get shit done. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take 2 seconds and read you a part of a chapter from my book from 4 years ago, and it talks to what get shit done is. So here we go. As a business owner, you're responsible for multiple tasks and responsibilities, and the GSD applies to every aspect of your business. Getting shit done entails asking questions when you are unsure and learning from the processes and your mistakes. GSD is believing in urgency, excellence, and delivery. GSD is often referred to as the hustle, but it's more than that in your business. It's the grit. It's the mental toughness. It's your emotional capacity and your passion to be recognized for greatness and recognized for always delivering what you said you would, on time, on budget, without a fuss. Constant improvement and putting in extra effort with suppliers, staff, and clients alike will pay off in more than just dividends. You will attract and retain better quality, higher paying clients and matter to people that your business touches. Set your goals, push your boundaries, achieve success, and over-deliver. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Getting shit done means you do the work you dread, submit the taxes you hate, have the hard conversations with your stakeholders, the harder conversations with your clients, and the most difficult conversations with yourself. Your talent will only take you so far, but the ability to learn the skills required to grow an organization of one that will get the important tasks done professionally, deal with your clients maturely, and communicate effectively is what will set you apart from your talented peers. Having a high GSD factor will allow you to work on the big picture and vision in small, bite-sized, achievable chunks. Looking at the long road ahead and never feeling that it's too far to go. Building your GSD factor is work. It needs to be developed and exercised like any muscle in your body. If you keep pushing yourself to do the hard things become easier and you build tolerance towards them, and this allows you to grow through the mental barriers you had subconsciously set for yourself. Achieve more. Getting shit done means you question everything. Question your processes, question your clients, question your prices, question yourself. Your willpower ebbs and flows, and your motivation levels will never be at 110% every damn day. So stick to a schedule. Be regimented in everything you do and avoid distractions that are shoved in your path every minute. Get off social media. Stop reading rubbish and only consume for improvement. Get off social media. Learn from the best that have done it and have the most valuable lessons to learn from. Get off social media. Set small habits and expand on them. If you want to cheat, then make it part of the habit routine. Cheat only when your calendar says you can. Consistency is the fuel of getting shit done. Pick a pace and tone that works for you and your clients, and be consistent in everything you do, from the way you answer your phone to the automation and frequency of raising your invoices. Starting a business is easy. Growing a business is painful. Growing a great business is extremely tough and takes resilience. Getting shit done is godly. Your clients and suppliers and consumers will not remember the work you delivered in months and years to come. They will, however, remember the way you delivered the work, your levels of professionalism, the way you presented yourself, and how you communicate with them at all touch points in the business. Getting shit done is what makes your business a success. GSD is what makes you a success. Get shit done.